interest in e-learning and education for the last maybe 25 years. I've been creating courses, leading groups, we're working on developing a curriculum and things like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Antonios?
Hi, everybody. My name is Antonios, and I'm a reader or an associate professor at Brunel University in London. I work in the computer science department. And my background is in social sciences, and somehow I found myself in a computer science, but I kind of get both and understand aspects of technology and also the more technical aspects of it. And I'm very glad that I'm part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Schahram, good morning.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Schahram Dustdar. I'm a professor of computer science at the Technical University in Vienna, in Austria. My focus is, so I'm leading the professorship, the chair professor in distributed systems, and my research interest is ranging from IoT sensors to edge computing, fog computing, and cloud computing, and everything that is in between. Mostly looking at systems from a holistic perspective also, and I'm fascinated by how systems can encompass human, machines, and things. Actually, how do we build these systems? Yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest is on the web.
Thank you. Morning, Brian. Brian.
Good morning. My name is Brian Alexander. This is one of my cats who will doubtless be climbing on me. I'm a futurist specializing in the future of higher education. Part of my work is based in Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I take a look at how the many ways that higher education can be transformed over the next generation. Everything from demographics to a lot of technology to economics. I'm currently working on a book about global higher education and climate change.
Thank you. Rob? Morning.
Good morning. I'm Robert Gibson, and I'm just delighted to be with this august group of individuals this morning. I'm calling in from the United States Midwest Teachers College, where I'm a technology director, but I'm also a graduate faculty member in our instructional design and technology program. Research interests are along the lines of universal design as it relates to artificial intelligence applications. So I'm doing quite a bit of research and writing and presentation in that particular domain. And I will be as succinct as possible and bid you adieu. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Hector?
Hello, everybody. My name is Vector. Are you listening to me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. I professor in National Technological Institute in Mexico. My background is I have a doctorate in Salamanca, Spain, in the area of adaptive assessment, and that's what my thesis in that time. But actually, I'm professor in this institute, working with topics of IoT, especially in the last time. But I'm very glad to be here with all of you, and I'm open to hear what kind of proposals emerge in this group and to participate. Thank you.
Saurabh, would you say a couple of words just to give us some, just welcome on behalf of the WAC and also kind of behind the scenes what you're planning?
No, absolutely. I'm very excited. Thanks everyone for being a part of WAC's Digital Innovation Lab Focus Group. This is the first meeting. The first meeting was supposed to be held in December, but unfortunately for some of the people who couldn't make it, so we had to postpone it to the new year. Anyways, I think we're seeing a great silver lining in 2021, especially related to the things that are happening in EdTech. And World Assessment Council has also been instrumental in implementing and taking a lot of pilots with many universities, colleges. And this focus group is basically about what we have been doing in EdTech and what WAC plans to do in EdTech. I mean, like, there's something very substantial that we have done in the last 18 months. I am myself an EdTech enthusiast. I head global partnerships for World Assessment Council. And I also head the Digital Innovations Lab along with Professor Babulak. And this meeting, we are going to be formalizing a lot of things as to how do we take the entire group further and what are the key activities that we intend to do. And of course, seek a lot of consensus from everyone who has joined today. So with much further ado, I will start with a little presentation and the agenda and everything of the meeting. We have about 90 minutes, now about 40 minutes to go. So welcome, Professor Sancheti. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening. Good morning, good evening, everything. Sorry for joining late. I didn't have the link. I got the link and I immediately joined. So thanks.
Welcome.
So let me quickly share the link and take you through the agenda of the meeting today. Okay, cool. So of course, this group, the World Assessment Council's Digital Innovation Lab Focus Group, we're talking about what's going to be the futuristic EdTech. And this EdTech is going to be for educators and by educators, people like you and me. Okay, so for this group, which is meeting for the first time, we have the following participants. I think everybody has introduced themselves already. So I think Professor Sancheti was a little late. So he is basically the Vice Chancellor for a very premier university in India, SRM University in Chennai, India. Welcome, everyone. So what's going to be the agenda today? So of course, we'll start with an overview. What's the agenda of this group? What do we intend to achieve? And what are the prospects and how do we collaborate and take this discussion and collaboration even further? So I'll have a brief overview, about 15 minutes, post which we will have key questions and brainstorming. Post that, we'll have the agenda set for the next meeting because it's a fortnightly group. So we meet every fortnight. The next meeting is going to be the 17th Feb, and we'll discuss the agenda. We'll also finalize the key members and the core committee for the group and all the activities that the group shall undertake. And then, of course, we'll have suggestions for greater impact for all the kind of activities that we are doing. Okay, so let's begin with the overview. So, of course, we understand, and that's what we have seen, because here in this group, we have people who are digital enthusiasts, we have vice chancellors, we have people who have implemented technology, EdTech, futurists, and people who have been talking EdTech, people who know how universities and how education in general can go online. So I'm sure all of us, this is nothing pretty new to all of us here. We understand that education is the least digitized sector across all the sectors that we can talk about. I've been myself pretty active with startups, products, building digital products, EdTech products for almost a decade now. That's what we've been doing at WAC as well. And we understand that less than 4% of all the universities, and it's not just universities or colleges or schools, even general education and training, I'm talking about in corporate sector as well, less than 4% is digital, which is very alarming. keeping in mind the technology advent and the kind of funding that we have for most of these startups, HR tech and all sorts of tech. But unfortunately, EdTech hasn't received that much, which it deserves. Unfortunately, the penetration for EdTech hasn't been that much. Okay, so anyways, even if we talk about this 4% penetration that we have for EdTech across universities and colleges and education in general, what's actually not working? We understand that most of the products that educators use today, they weren't built for educators. I mean, like, for instance, look at Zoom. We use Zoom, we use Google Meet, we use Microsoft Teams. I'm talking about just synchronous or live or remote delivery of our lectures. Now this was built for education. Now, of course, they realize it's an opportunity and they're trying to pivot to what it can do for educators. But of course, it wasn't built with educators in mind. So of course, it lacks those features. And it's not just this. Even if we talk about the most prevalent form of digital initiative for any university, it's always going to be an LMS, right? We've known Moodle for years, open source, and then of course there has been a plethora of LMS providers around the world. But then we realize again, they are also at the crossroad of who they are catering to. Are they catering to universities? Of course, there are some dedicated players. We all know most of them. Most of these products, they lack desired features. Of course, they aren't user-friendly because Moodle still dominates 70% of the market. So of course, it's not user-friendly. The UI is pathetic. And of course, they're expensive. I mean, like, I've been speaking to so many university heads around the world. And one of the biggest things that they say, something that really deters them, before COVID, was actually the cost. So cost is definitely one of the major factors which prevents universities around the world, irrespective of geographies, to adopt technology. And unfortunately, when we have a team and when all of the developers and all of us, when we met and 2 years ago, we said that we're going to build an EdTech, which is going to be completely inexpensive. And we started, peeling off layers of what makes it so expensive. We realized that, most of the products in the market, they are seriously overpriced for the value they offer. Then, of course, we understand it's a broken process. If you see today, for any university teacher or a school teacher, today they have to log into different dashboards. So for instance, if they have to conduct their remote classes, they will have to go to a Zoom or a Meet or a Google. But when it comes to their courses where they're hosted, it's going to be some LMS. Then when it comes to examination, it's going to be a different platform. Proctoring, some other platform. Assignments, some other platform. So of course, this process is broken. We still do not have a sales force for educators, something that can do almost everything for an educator. Now we realize that, and we have been talking about this across, platforms and so many Zoom meetings and online conferences. We realize that, all visionary universities today have realized that the way forward is hybrid. I mean, like most popularly called as HyFlex, which is more like hybrid and flexible, wherein the conventional models of universities are going to change in terms of delivery. Of course, in terms of the economics of university, of course, it has changed. So, a lot of players like Coursera and edX and everyone else, they are really disruptive in some way or the other. A lot of big players, Google and everyone, they've upped the game, especially in EdTech. So suddenly, EdTech is the new e-commerce. So everybody wants to be in EdTech and do something because suddenly the world has COVID really has changed all faculty and student behaviors. So suddenly the world has stood up, taken note of what is happening in EdTech, and now suddenly there are serious players who really want to change EdTech. Of course, then universities also realize that EdTech is game changing. Of course, it is cost effective. Paper is expensive. It's definitely not green. There are a lot of conventional methods and processes which are any day better when you go online. For instance, proctoring or analytics or AI, AR, VR, and so many of them. I'm sure we'll discuss most of them, and we realize there's so many areas and avenues which can never be done better with technology than with conventional methods, hundreds of years that we've been doing. Then, of course, we realized that, with the rise of online degree and career-focused programs, this is a huge opportunity, huge, probably about $200 billion, opportunity, which is still untapped. So, of course, that makes a lot of sense for universities to explore now beyond their conventional brick and mortar models. Then, of course, it helps them increase their outreach into an unexplored audience, like I said. And then they realize that, high flex is there to dominate. Even currently, as I speak, less than 5% of universities, even after COVID and everything, just 5% of universities globally have, actually made up their mind 100% to go hybrid, adopt digital. Still 95% believe that very soon everything will be over, vaccinations are going to do wonders to the world, and we will go back to the age-old methods. But then I think, all of us realize that, that the world before COVID is over forever now. So sooner we realize this, that, the future is this, and that's what most of the universities realize, and everyone else, like 95% is going to fall because these are the universities which will follow what the 5% would do. So as I said, just because of this and just because of this, immediate attention and which EdTech has got globally, of course, this is very natural to happen. There is a forecast which suggests that the digital spend on EdTech is going to be doubled and I think it's going to be tripled. This is just very, being very a very moderate view of what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be tripled by 2025. So now imagine the challenges that we've just seen, and since it's going to be tripled, where are the areas where we can actually innovate? We had our meetings and discussions, and we did 6 market surveys with 100+ universities globally. We realized that most of the universities, educators, controller of examination, IT heads, and those who implement technology at universities, they have said that if we can have one single dashboard, this is the biggest demand of all the universities, that if we can have one single dashboard for my classrooms, where I can take my classrooms online, where I can have all my courses put up, like for asynchronous and synchronous mode of delivery. Then I have my online examinations also delivered to the same platform, assignments, proctoring, everything. So as an educator, I don't have to hop on from one platform to the other. One single login, one single dashboard for all the key functions that are required to deliver my courses and also evaluate learning and outcomes. So as we realize that, this education, so suddenly because of the EdTech advent, it's going to be a $7 trillion industry by 2025. And why these numbers are important, I'm just going to be talking about why they make sense to what we're doing at WAC. Suddenly, there is a huge surge of VC capital funding for EdTech. Of course, it has anyways gone up 2x. This is going to be 3x to 4x in the next 4 to 5 years. That's for sure to happen. We only have, currently we only have about 40, unicorns. Unicorns are companies or startups who have the valuation above $1 billion. So still, and we are predicting that, and this is basically from HolonIQ, one of the largest market intelligence company in EdTech today. They have also predicted that, there are going to be 100 unicorns. That means 100 EdTech companies who will have their valuation above $1 billion by 2025. So this is like, huge opportunity, a space where a lot of innovation, and when I say innovation, I mean some serious disruption, not only in terms of what we can do as the product, how we can empower educators, but also in terms of the pricing that actually dominates the market currently. So what we have been doing at WAC Digital Innovation Lab, we are basically currently a team of some 12 to 15 digital enthusiasts, which also includes leading developers, some of the best developers, 2 of them, some of the best from Silicon Valley, who worked in companies like Google and Twitter. Some great developers who have managed scale. When I say scale, they've managed 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 students concurrently on the platform. we've built some amazing tech, and how we started building this was we reached out to all the educators who were subscribed with WAC, and we asked them that, and this was even before COVID, and we asked them that what exactly is it that doesn't work for you? So everybody started sharing that, can we do something like this? Can we do more of? Everybody started talking about their LMS and their experience and what they actually want, and then we started building the product. The biggest thing that didn't, we realized that was an immediate need was on the examinations part. How do they actually conduct their examinations online, assignments online? How does online annotation happen? Or how does written or essay-based examinations happen online? Proctoring, it's very expensive. Live proctoring, all of this, how to get dominates and all of that. And then we also understand how students across the US, they have been using Sheg, and cheating across exams and taking help. And this is definitely a breach for all the examinations that happen. So we realized that, that is something that needs to be delivered. We started working on the product, and we built a virtual examination center, which was launched about 7 months ago, just about the time of COVID. And then we started giving out to universities, of course, for free. They started using it, and we started collecting feedback. And we started building it. In 3 months, we had a very solid platform, very robust. The platform which can help you do all kinds of objective, subjective exams, which is like essays, even coding tests, even audio tests, video tests. We understand that audio and video technology is a must in education, assignments and submissions, and so much that we built. Today, we have more than 96 universities. This is the status as of today on the product, who are actually using the virtual examination center globally. Now what we're going to do is we're going to launch a product or a platform, again, which is going to be completely inexpensive. The technology is going to be for educators, because what we want is we want to empower every educator on earth. That's what WAC has a mission to accomplish. And we will take this product to every educator, every university, every college, every school, and we'll tell them that you don't have to worry. If you want to pilot, you can start it free. That means for all those products where they would have to spend $15,000, $20,000, $100,000 just to start, they can start with us for free for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever that they need. And the product will support them on all the features that we just talked about. So we'll have live classrooms. You will not need Zoom, Meet, or Google or Microsoft Teams. You will not need LMS. So it's going to be part of the same thing. You will not need any online examination platform or a proctoring platform. Everything happens from one single dashboard. The first version is going to be launched in 90 days from now. We're almost 80%, 85% done. So this is the time when we thought that we're going to be starting connecting with people, and also start formalizing the entire, or let's the people who will constitute the core team for this product. Of course, we'll seek interest from all of you and everyone else who has shown interest to be part of this awesome initiative. So currently, also we have about 4,500 plus. We ran a waitlist campaign some 6 months ago, asking educators if they would be interested in a product like this, and if it comes to them, and because use it free for 3 months. So we have a wait list from about 4,500 educators and universities already. So they're eagerly waiting for the product to be launched. Then how we funded ourselves, it was funded by WAC digital enthusiasts, people like you and me. And also the current product already started earning revenues, the virtual examination center. So it is completely sustainable. I think we have a runway for probably next 4 years or 5 years. So we're well in a very good shape financially to support all our engineers and everyone who is going to be part of the journey. Then the product, like I said, it was being used by so many educators. So some 9,000 educators already on the platform, which has only the virtual examination center currently. They have been giving feedback for the LMS and also for the online classrooms. And we have done some pilots with them. But then what we're going to do in this group now is we are going to be talking about all those 5 features or different features that we have. And we're going to showcase a couple of features to everyone. Take your feedback. Based on your feedback, we will sit with the technology team. We'll work on them. We will set up our milestones and our sprints accordingly, and then we will get into the development mode for most of the features that you suggest. All the features that you suggest, or let's say a specific feature that you suggest, which is very useful for the entire education fraternity and for the platform, you will get the attribution, which means when people in the product, when they actually hover, there will be a little star besides that particular feature, wherever it will be featured on the product. And whenever they hover on that star, it will have your name, that how you contributed to this beautiful feature on the platform. So it stays with the platform. It sort of makes you immortal in the EdTech fraternity. Then, of course, we need your help in launching the product in 90 days. So we can roll this out to you, university, and whosoever you suggest who could be part of the journey. Of course, there's no cost involved, so we can look at supporting them. Like I said, you get feature attributions, and of course, you can get it free for life. So all the core committee members, and we haven't constituted that yet. Today, based on the feedback and the interest shown by everyone in the group, we will constitute the core committee. In fact, we're also looking, because this product is going to be launched separately as an EdTech product, as an EdTech startup this year itself by around April, end of May. So we are looking for co-founders. We're looking for board of advisors who will be here. And of course, as co-founders and board of advisors, you will have the stake in the EdTech startup. And what we're trying to do is, and we clearly see that we can take this product to be $100 million or a $1 billion product probably in 4 to 5 years. Maybe I'm a little optimistic about this, but I think if we are on a mission to empower everybody and help them and typically disrupt the market in terms of the product and the pricing, I think everybody's blessings and wishes would be with us, and that is what we can already see, that how educators, how we see a little smile on the face when we see them using the product. So that's what we wish to continue to see. So that's what we aim. We aim to empower every educator on earth through what we are doing in the initiatives, and of course with the blessings and contributions from eminent digital enthusiasts like you. So I'm open to key questions and brainstorming, and then now I would want to know, like, what exactly do you think are the key areas where we should focus, and your thoughts initially on what you have just seen. So let me just see the participants.
So I have one question. Can you say speak to the question of the business model of this platform? Is it a subscription-based business model where universities pay a fee? So who is the customer? Is it the university, or is it on the group level, the research group level, and things like this? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure. I think that's a great question, because that is something that even we have been pondering about, and this is something which we all can ponder and probably come to a consensus. What we have proposed initially at WAC is that we will keep it free for educators for life, which means if there is an independent educator in a school or a college, or let's say an independent freelancer, and if they're teaching, and if they want to empower their entire online delivery through everything that we have just shown, we'll keep it free for them. But when a university or a college or an institution adopts it, then we can get into a model where, because there are a lot of features which are more collaborative when you go on a university or an institution level. And then we can turn into a SaaS-based subscription, which means, yes, they will subscribe. Maybe you can keep it like, as low as $1 a student per month, or even low, to support everything, which for unlimited usage. I mean, like, that's what we have to decide. That's what we can decide, what will work. You're from Europe, and we have people from, all of us are from US, and then we have people from India and Malaysia and UAE. we can definitely take a call. What can work? This is something which is going to be empowering educators globally. So we can have.
Yeah, in principle, I believe that this technology should evolve bottom up. So I like what you're saying in a sense that if every professor, etc., or even some, it can somehow gradually grow into some big movement, right? I think this is the right approach fitting to the actual problem. On the other hand, I think that technically speaking, it faces a lot of extra type of challenges because basically the individual professor also requires a lot of the features that essentially also the university needs, right? So in this transition to the point, when do you actually switch to the kind of enterprise license, so to speak, is actually challenging. Maybe we can even have some kinds of test runs, first early customers where we experiment with both models and see where it's going to take us, because I think we are entering new territory here as well. This is definitely something different than the traditional models of the past, which I think is good, right?
Wonderful. That's wonderful. I mean, that's very encouraging. I think yes. What we can actually do is, because the idea is that we want look at what Zoom has done. Zoom or any other product for that matter, they all started with individuals, and when individuals found value in it, then they of course they want to adopt, because we also would be pitching simultaneously to all those universities, all these educators who are going to be using their product. These are like ambassadors in their own university. They can vouch for the product and they can say, I've been using it. And of course,
right.
There are universities because we'll also be talking to universities straight away. And we already have a lot of interest from many universities. So I think, we can have that option as well from universities.
And I think another dimension, I think, which is also very important these days, is to have kind of an app store model on top of that. So in the sense that we can get the contributions of individuals or larger communities even that can actually contribute to the functionality of the overall platform by having some kind of add-ons via app stores, right? Because the whole thing that you presented is a large endeavor. It's not just a dashboard. The dashboard is just the interface, which is at the outside of it, and you can sell it via the dashboard. The real trick is that you somehow want to avoid inventing everything from scratch, because the whole industry of education has a lot of different components, right? And the question is, are you going to integrate all sorts of different systems? Are you in the integration business, or do you plan to write it from scratch, right? Because I guess you don't want to get into the business of SAP integration or whatever kind of integration, right? Is some completely different animal. Do you want to avoid that, right?
Yeah, true. I think, please.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, and then I'll have a question.
Yeah, so I definitely believe that, we should have an ecosystem of apps, because that really helps a lot of contributors. And so we will definitely keep that open. Probably that is 6 months or 7 months down the line, where we're going to open a lot of APIs and a lot of integration that can happen. So we will definitely build a community of developers around the product who can contribute with more sort of plugins and, more sort of, features which people can buy from the platform when they use it. Of course, so something like what most of the, bigger, larger organizations like Salesforce or everyone else, they do around their product. So we're trying to take that approach. Sure. So that's definitely on the cards. Yeah, Dr. Hamad.
I think it's a good idea to have a solution that comprehensive and has everything in one place, and instead of going everywhere. But on the other side, in this open market, when you get each one to work in their own domain, like Zoom or Google Teams, they are expert in this area. They have the infrastructure, they have their engineer, and they can develop it. And then you have standards to link those different solutions together. That also has an advantage. It's not a weakness, in my opinion. It is really a strength, because you are allowing the players who have capability to do that, but you need to design standards in place to make this integration seamless and the data flows without any issue. And I think IT doing very well. The IT industry is very good at this one. You can find there are ways to, with the APIs or all those things, you can link all those systems in an easy way. My question is, I heard you talking about the universities, which great, but you're not looking at schools as well, or just only universities at this level? Because the lower end maybe, or the schools, they maybe need some higher level of engagement and adapting to different level, like KG, for example. Those students need a different thing from going into higher level education.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a good question. Like, we're not starting really like a startup. So we have the educator in mind, you know, and the educator could come from a university, like from higher education, or even from a school, or even, let's say, a personal trainer. I mean, like, you know, a freelancer who trains at a company and who educates a handful, 20, 30 people in a group. Even that person, if he wants to empower, so anybody who is in the business of education, on a personal level, or a school level, or a college level, or a university level. So we just open to any educator. So they can just come and they can start. So that's the intent. But I think, you know,
I would like to interject here, because can I ask you a question about this? Because I'm a little bit worried that you basically say everybody is the customer. And everybody is, I'm a little bit worried about this, because I mean, in principle, you are right. There are many features that can be used by coaches and what have you, right? Like, for example, creating video courses, putting them online, having people comment on it, etc. But there are massive platforms out there, which, like Kajabi, for example, right? This is a super successful platform which does exactly that. So, and then whenever you cannot basically say who is your competition, things become really messy from a software business perspective. And I think it's worthwhile to invest a little bit more in an evaluation of really who the customer is, what is the positioning, which I think we should spend a lot of time on, because the positioning of this thing is not trivial. Because basically what you're trying to attempt is to disrupt the university education business, which is several hundred years old, which is very, very conservative. Most people are finding hundreds of ways to tell you that it's not gonna work. And so the difficulty really is a completely kind of, you know, from this one hand side, from the customer potential, and on the other hand, even from the tech side, right? All the Kajabis and all the video platforms and all of that. Because if you go into this Kajabi competition, then the question is, okay, do you also want to provide monetization, a support that, you know, the university professors, teachers, whatever, are able to monetize based on their courses and things like this? In principle, we would all probably say yes, why not? Sounds like an interesting model. But on the very practical side, these things become very tricky. So I think maybe on the first hand, I think because you have a lot of experience talking to the universities, etc. so far, maybe you can speak to how can we limit the things where we want to go and where we want to discuss. Because if you leave too many options, there is just, I mean, you know, this EdTech have the potential to create everything for everybody, and that's probably too big for our plate, because it's even too big for the Amazons and the Googles of this world. So
True. I think, yes, initially we will have a little focus to start with, because we have been working with universities. So of course we will roll out. So like, for instance, we have 96 universities already using the virtual examination center. So the first product is going to be rolled out to them so that they can start using. In fact, some of them already started integrating, where they are going to be launching their courses from current semester. They're going to be selling courses online using the platform. So of course, yes, that's good. So of course, initially, focus is going to be universities. But as we proceed, we just want to empower every educator, probably 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line. But yes, initially the focus could be universities. I think that's a very good point.
If I may, I agree with Professor Schahram. I mean, you know, it's a very delicate balance, because you kind of want to make sure that you have the idea, I mean, as it is now, it seems that the World Council and the whole initiative is becoming kind of quite well adopted, and people are aware of, of the initiatives. And also, as far as academia, it's the way of, a lot of diplomacy, and also in the building business model, we have to be really kind of specific, and perhaps, as you mentioned, take it as a step-by-step evolutionary process. When you mentioned 90 universities, so they may be kind of more willing, and eventually, with the expertise of the existing institution, you figure out the business model. Because bottom line is, when you mention, any, say, potential money, the money is an umbrella, or like we talk in networks, it's an 8th layer of OSI model. Yeah, on top of all this is money. So, and of course, it's important to kind of figure out how we can, first of all, promote the whole idea, and then perhaps, show some practical examples. And at the same time, perhaps with, like I see here, Carnegie Mellon and other, there's so many like initiatives, open universities, etc. But to figure out how we can build bridges, collaborative bridges, and we can offer something that would be kind of like, enhancement, something that people really would say, but it's a strategy. It's a very initial thinking, what I'm thinking from what I heard. And let us hear from other colleagues and see, but I at the moment, I kind of look at, we really have to be very kind of systematic, because it's a brilliant idea, very, wonderful idea, but we don't want to get it crushed by people who say, well, this is going to challenge the whole, because, universities, it's business. Of course, we all know that. So they already have the business model worked out for so many hundred years. So let's hear from colleagues and see if we can, say, pull up 5 minutes or whatever individually and just bring your views. And also, Saurabh, I hope you keep recording of this session.
Yes, sir.
And then eventually make transcripting and draft kind of like a resume of what we're discussing. Thank you. Please, so anyone willing to comment, but I like to say thank you, Professor Schahram, because you have been kind of like, you put us in that spotlight that really it's not, the wonderful ideas are wonderful, but we have to be also pragmatic, and there is a rigor that we need to figure out how to kind of make sure that it's eventually become, really successful and really viable product. So please, everybody, just raise your hand and comment.
Antonius, yeah, please, Antonius.
Yeah, please. Okay.
Yes, hi. This has been interesting so far. Thank you for those thoughts. I would like to echo what Professor Dustdar said about the universities and how sometimes it took a whole global pandemic to get us to talk about to decide whether we're going to do the lectures on Zoom or on Teams or whatever, let alone decide to change the whole model or integrate all the platforms in one place. But on the other hand, there are many different types of universities. So it's when we say a university, it's not one specific thing that's universally the same everywhere. So here in the UK, for example, even here in the UK, you have like the Oxbridge and all the Russell Group universities that have been operating for centuries, and they have this long history of and tradition. But you also have younger universities or private providers that develop and deliver sort of courses for vocational qualifications, for more corporate training and that kind of stuff. So there is a whole private market of educators that may be easier for them to sort of accept something like that because they don't carry all these tradition and history and policies and whatnot. And also you have a lot of UK universities are building campuses overseas because they want to expand their markets. So, for example, you have, I mean, Nottingham is quite famous in China. They have the China campus. A lot of UK and American universities, they have built campuses all over the world. So maybe there it could be a sort of more approachable way to get in touch with them and explain. When you're setting up a university from scratch, maybe it's easier for you to sort of look for a solution that it's all encompassing and it offers certain things. And I would also like to agree with the bottom-up approach. A lot of the solutions and the features that we are using right now, and we have adapted personally myself as an educator, is because I've heard it, like it's kind of a word of mouth kind of thing, that some colleagues of mine told me, oh, I'm using this platform to do online quizzes or to do things and that. And I said, okay, I'm going to try it out. And there is, what is good now in the universities, that in every university that I know of, at least, there is some kind of regular meeting where people discuss new ideas about how to sort of improve certain things and deliver certain learning outcomes with an online, by online means. So to recap, the universities are a bit rigid, and it's hard to get through and navigate through the institutional sort of decision-making avenues and all the policies and sort of quality assurance sort of issues. But on the other hand, there's many different types of higher education providers or educators that could be more open and willing to accept something like this. Sorry, I'm going to stop and let someone else speak, but thank you.
Thank you, thank you. You highlighted some important points, and indeed, it's the eventually partnership that I see also in the note here. How do we actually build that partnership with whom? Where do we start? And so I think, yeah, thank you so much. Next, please. Yeah, Brad.
Just a few points. First, I want to thank you for this passionate presentation. I really enjoyed it. I liked your clarity and how much ground you covered in a very short time. I wish other presenters could learn from you. And second, I've really enjoyed the feedback that you've gotten from everybody else. Most of it is me just going, yes, what he said, that's good, and so on. I just want to hit a couple of really quick points. One is, I'm not sure how this would fit into the overall current ecosystem. So, for example, do you partner with certain entities in order to provide services that are integrated seamlessly within, like Canvas does with Zoom, or do you replicate those services internally within this? So I'd be really curious to go through a whole bunch of these services and just see how that's one point. The second is to reiterate the point about decision makers. Most campuses, it's basically the IT department. The chief information officer is the final customer. And one interesting angle on this is to make individual faculty the customer. And that's how Google took off, for example, with Google Apps. So I'd be curious about that. A third point, this is an obvious one. I just have to mention it because it can get skipped. I'd be curious to see if you make this mobile centric and design for mobile first, because most of the LMSs have terrible mobile apps, and that could be a real deciding point. And the last idea just to put in there, just one more point, is what if this is designed AI first? What does that look like? And that's enough for me.
Wonderful, I think.
Brilliant.
That's very good feedback, Professor Babulak. Can I just take this, Professor Babulak?
Yeah, well, I just said brilliant. Thank you, Brian. Because you're right. There are a lot of dimensions, and you mentioned mobility, you mentioned AI. Of course, we cannot think about anything today without AI. and of course the whole centralization of that is because eventually there has to be some seamless, pervasive kind of ubiquity that kind of become adapted and just as you mentioned at the very beginning, Sarah. Oh, I want to study. I want to do this. Click and just get into the system, please.
Yeah, so I was just coming to what just Brian said. I think, Brian, you really make a very strong point when you say that it has to be mobile centric, because most of those platforms, they actually fail when they actually run on mobile. Of course, platforms like, Zoom or Blackboard or Canvas, which have been heavily funded over the years, they definitely have a great mobile experience. But then why we have a marriage between Zoom and Canvas is because Canvas doesn't have Zoom and Zoom doesn't have Canvas. And that's the space that we're trying to fill in. That's what we have been, that's the entire premise of why we're building this product. In terms of the AI, we already have 2 leading AI researchers on the team who are building the product. In fact, in the next couple of sessions, when we talk about how we have implemented AI in proctoring, how we've implemented AI in performance evaluation, rubric setting up, and all of that, we definitely have AI as the core of the whole suite. So yeah, I think all those points that you made are very valid. We are very keen on, and we're already working on them. So we look forward to showing you more on that. Yes, Professor Sancheti.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Saurabh, and thank you everyone for their views. I'm happy to be part of the group and also express some of my views here. Number one, the presentation you made was very crisp and it set the right tone. And it is in this context that you said that you want to bring multifunctionality into your offering or the product which you are talking of. Everything in one place kind of a thing you are trying to say. But I would say that in addition to the functionality and the cost, these are the 2 premises you had to talk about your product. If I look at the Indian context, or maybe it may be general also, one of the bottleneck is the mindset. People don't want to change, are resistive to change. So that will also be a bottleneck. And another one is, at least in Indian context, the bandwidth and the devices. You may make the best of the product, but if 10% of my class is unable to afford that or have that, I think a teacher will find or an institution will find it difficult to adopt to that. Huge diversity is there in India in this context. So in addition to those 2 bottlenecks which you mentioned, functionality and cost, I would say mindset and the availability of devices or bandwidth will also be a big issue. And I'm told that, leave aside few countries here and there, this issue remains to be common. Now, if I go threadbare into functionality part, you said classrooms, assignment, courses, exams, and proctoring. These are the 5 functions you'll bring on one table. I would broadly see exams and proctoring to be overlapping with each other. Not much different. I don't need any proctoring on anyone except for the examination to say so. I mean, just I'm going by literal meaning. When it comes to classrooms or coursework or assignment, once again, broadly fall into the same category. So in that sense, it's little limited. But if today I'm looking for one thing in Indian context, let's say, and I'll justify why we are saying that, is that I need functionality which is end-to-end. If I'm looking at the student support system in this or in student information system or student, whatever system you name it, I'm looking at end-to-end, starting from student recruitment to student placement. Why only academic? Okay, so if you are saying something, everything in one place, then it's not justifiable. Well, there is a lot of things which are outside right now in this place. For example, internships are an integral part of the academic world. How are they going to be catered to, or how are they going to be addressed in this particular aspect of what you call everything in one place? So I would like something like URP, University Resource Planning, or ERP, whatever way you understand it, to be integrated or integratable with that. And by the way, in India is a big market. Numbers are growing. GER is growing. The base is very, very big. And India needs technology more most other countries because we have other handicaps. So technology can help us. So I'm a part of a committee called Blended Learning Committee for UGC, and we are trying to work out this thing. And we are finding it very, very difficult what to suggest in terms of what kind of a technology, how these things should be integrated, or should there be one solution, or should there be discrete solutions which are there. So those are some of the things which are there. So my suggestion would be that the integration should be of a little higher level if it is possible. Otherwise, this functionality 5 parameters which are given to me are probably boiling down to 3 at the best for a person like me. The other thing you talked about is whether the AI or other things would be an integral part of this. I would say without that, your system cannot function. It has to be the engine of the entire thing. And therefore, AI at every step will be something very important. If I take the next point, where do you start this? University or the schools or both? I think your system should be transparent to the level of education because the functions required are same. Classrooms are required in schools, courses are required in schools, exams are required, proctoring is required, assignments are required everywhere. Why should we try to distinguish between these two unnecessarily? I think KG to PG should be seamless in my opinion. And therefore, whosoever likes to attempt to learn from it or use it should be allowed. We should not focus or market it that it's singularly good for higher or the school education. I think that should go away. When it comes to the costing model, for the costing part, I think that's the most difficult. That's where we'll make or break. Technology will come, technology would be available. And most of the good things have fallen apart because of the costing part. Zoom, I think you know, and you are quoting it a couple of times, is a good example that how they have escalated their position or whatever. I think you should follow that. A lot of it has to go free to the end user level. If it is not a for-profit kind of an effort, you can say, limited in terms of time, limited in terms of, let's say, the spanning out, that one teacher to how many students. Now, if every day I'm doing 60 in a group or 100 in a group, obviously I'm running a commercial setup. So in that sense, bottom-up approach is fine. Let people feel the power of this particular offer which we are, or the model which we are going to create. But for the university, a very liberal distributed charge model on annual basis or on enrollment basis or user basis, something like that has to be there, because no one will be ready to give you a capex that, oh, I bought something from you and using it, because tomorrow things may change completely, and who would like to buy this as a unit? So as you progress in terms of functionality and its uses, you will keep paying, pay as you please, or something like that, pay as you go kind of a thing would be a right model. So these are my initial remarks, but I'd like to share something more later as we progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well. I think, you really kind of brought together all these fundamentals, because everybody, we know that at the end of the day, there always will be that question of cost, where and how and whatever. But again, at the same time, it's, in this kind of development, I believe it's good to learn from successes of others and perhaps avoid, some mistakes that because it takes a small mistake and a lot of hard work and things are just crashing. So I agree. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Just answering a few things here, sir. What Dr. Sancheti just said. And before that, Brian, if you're running out of time, I understand. And basically after this, once we have feedback from everyone, I think 2 or 3 people or more to go, we will decide the agenda of the next meeting, which can also be done over email, and I can take a consensus from all the participants here. We'll also finalize the core committee of this initiative. So all those who have heard us out today, and we will send you an email, and based on that, based on your your inclination to be part of this initiative, you're most welcome. All of you are eligible and welcome to be part of the core committee, which will later, also maybe we can find some co-founders and board of advisors from this group and there. So that's the agenda going further. So feel free to leave, Brian. Don't worry. Thanks for your time, and we really appreciate that you participated. Coming to Dr. Sancheti, so I think you made some great points. Keeping in mind what Indian ecosystem and landscape is. Out of 96 universities, I think 46 are from India that we currently cater to. So I think yes, we do understand that technology and bandwidth and all of that is a challenge, and we are already rolling out solutions which will work even offline. So there is going to be a complete sync, works on mobile. There is an app. Even if you don't have internet, you still have access to a lot of content and delivery and even examination and assignments. So we are, taking it to the next level where we understand in most of the countries which have those challenges, we can cater. Second, what Dr. Schahram also said, that we need to have an ecosystem of apps. So of course, everybody is saying that we've already taken up too much on our shoulders. We're building so much already in one platform. But yes, I understand it has to be a KG to PG and also catering to everything that a student would need in a university or a school or a college. But when we have an ecosystem of developers building products for what we have, we will have most of those things anyway. Somebody will build an attendance system, somebody will build, the placement statistics, or how do we go roll out our internships and examinations and community and alumni. All of that can really fall in place with a vibrant community of developers, which we definitely seek to build. So thank you so much for your feedback.
Saurabh, just to mention, I see Brian had mentioned that he has some, things to take care of. Just mentioning that there'll be next meeting in 2 weeks, just, for people who may have some ties. And also, Saurabh, if you just kind of send us here again the agenda of resume of this meeting, and then kind of people can get ready or get ideas for the next follow-up meeting.
Yeah, sure. So after this meeting, I'll send an email to everyone, as to what we discussed today.
Thank you. Yeah. Professor Hector, you had some interesting comments, please.
Thank you. As I put it in the chat window, I'm part of the very big organization here in Mexico, and I could face a strong opposition, but in the circle of my colleagues, I could post this proposal. I like the proposal because it includes a lot of services. We are now using just models, very old-fashioned models, and face a lot of challenge with my colleagues that never used any LMS platform before. So I'm open to hear more about this proposition for proposal, and I'm here to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, you want to add to discussions we had? A lot of points been brought up.
Yeah, thank you for everybody's contributions. And like Brian, I found myself agreeing with almost all of the comments that have been made so far. So thank you all for that. Just a couple of things I noted and jotted down for us to kind of ruminate on a little bit here. One of them it kind of gets back into the educational psychology area, and that is how we construct learning. Whether or not it's going to be more constructivist based, social learning, those types of concepts, and how the products adapt to the individual instructor or professor's needs relative to those psychological domains, those learning domains. And I think that in my view, products of the future, and Brian may disagree, I think are going to have to be very adaptable to how faculty wish to develop, organize, and present their content. And it's going to vary. I mean, some people are, very much in sort of a behaviorist sort of mode of presenting content, having students take tests in a very sort of regimented format with a cadence that kind of conforms to that lecture test format. And others are very constructivist oriented, where students actually develop and design. And so I think products, educational technology products, need to be able to adapt to whatever particular philosophy a person adheres to. And maybe your product will, we don't know that yet. But that's something I think is going to be very critical going forward. The problem I see now with the current slate of products is that they are very, I think they tend to keyhole or pigeonhole faculty into presenting content in a certain format. I think the product dictates the learning structure. And I think that's been a major criticism of the current learning management system crop, is that it doesn't provide enough latitude and flexibility for different types of learning. The internationalization is appealing, but it comes fraught with some challenges. And I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. Multi-language is obviously going to be very important. This type of thing. There's going to be time zone differentiation. There's going to be cultural changes and norms depending upon where the product is being offered. And so the product needs to be able to adapt, I think, to really basically almost any sort of cultural format that it may be delivered in. And that's been a little bit of a challenge with the current, at least the US domestic products, is that they have to sort of readapt to the particular internationalization. Briefly, real quickly, I don't want to take too much time here. The one-stop shop format is appealing, but I would just caution everybody that a lot of companies have tried that and have not been successful with that. A lot of the current learning management systems, for example, have decided that it's best to step back and let the products who are best of breed, so to speak, take the lead on those particular areas, and not try to be the be-all, end-all for every particular thing that they may encounter. So if Zoom is best of breed for web conferencing or whatever it might be, then let them do that, and we'll connect to them. Or if Office products are the best of breed, then we'll connect to them, and so forth and so forth. So it's appealing. But I think that most of the LMSs to date here in the States have decided to go about that by developing integrations or plugins or building blocks or what have you to allow for that type of integration, rather than trying to be the be all end all. So, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob. I mean, I agree 100%. This is challenging to kind of figure out. Because yet, the whole idea of the product, which I understand, and Saurabh can comment on it, is the global product and kind of make the education and best learning experience and quality of education accessible to every child on the planet. Now, again, to do that, we need to get partners, from very well established and successful institutions, and such as US, Canada, UK, and whatever, all right. And yet at the same time, to see how we could, with building the product, and I think I agree with you very well, that we need to change. Because I've been in education for some time, I've been in industry, and you're right, sometimes educators or faculty members, they feel like they are in, on the ice rink. You can only go here and you can only go there, and there's not much of, and same with the students. And very often we get these situations when then, of course, as far as the user perception or student perception of the education via LMS could be quite, quite different. So this kind of, we have to look at the student body, and we also have to look at the faculty. At the same time, we also have to look at how this evolution of what you said, transforming the educational system, and sociologically, I mean, psychologically, it's essential because we see it right now. Look at what happened in the last couple of months. Everything has changed, and that changes the psychology of people, family situations, economics. So I agree that we have to kind of, and this could be unique opportunities, also to figure out how yet that solution can actually give a new or open a new horizon for education. So, that element of something that yet the even most successful, most prestigious schools did not figure out. So it's a challenge, but yet exciting and wonderful challenge.
True, can't agree more. Whatever Rob said, of course, those are the challenges when it comes to how education and EdTech works in US, how some of the universities have adopted, and they definitely have a couple of plugins and integrations and all of that, and it's very difficult to make the transition, which is essentially the case when all SaaS adopted. I'm like, all those, even companies, when they adopted, SaaS products, and the deal size could be anything from 200,000 to $1 million or more. That transition is definitely very challenging. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of persuasion. And like Dr. Schahram also said, it is anything between 6 months to 8 months before they actually can start thinking about the product and the integration and adopting it at the university level. But just because we would have this bottoms-up approach, we would have a lot of people in universities who would know what the product is, who would know what they're doing currently, how it helps them save time, and nobody has attempted that. I mean, like a lot of companies today are trying to build something, and just because they have partnered with, like for instance, like a Blackboard partnering with Zoom, or let's say somebody partnering with a DigiProctor or something, some of those services, these are big and mammoth organizations. And when you have partners together, it restricts you from inventing and building the whole thing yourself, which will restrict them, always to come as a package. Or that's why one would, probably recommend the other. But when you get something like this, it definitely saves you, because when you have different integrations, it means bigger technology teams. It means it becomes more expensive just to manage those 3 different installations. That's extra time, efforts, and cost. When it comes together, and of course the technology and somebody who would try to attempt it, maybe we might see some very conducive results. So fingers crossed. Thanks for your input, though.
Yeah, well, anybody else? Thoughts, ideas?
Just real quickly, I'm just going to volunteer one thing, and I'll be brief. A colleague of mine has had great success, not here at this institution, but she's teaches in another university, where she has basically deconstructed the learning management system, if you will. She really kind of almost refuses to use it in a certain sense. She has instead defaulted to using a collection of various learning tools that she has assembled on her own accord, and had great success with that. Really sort of almost turning her nose up at the formality of a learning management system and the very structured, regimented approach to sort of shoehorning, if you will, if I could use an American euphemism, making students conform to these particular products, rather than having the product adapt to the learner has to adapt to the product, kind of thing. So she has instead just turned that on its end and decided to utilize just this whole palette of different types of products, and really deconstructed the whole notion of having to use an LMS. And she's had really great success with it. I mean, she's using various open source blogs and open source learning tools, all the Google App Suite, that kind of thing, and sort of pulled all those elements together into her learning space. And the students seem to have really responded very positively to that. Now, that's a kind of a unique person, I will admit. That's not your average technophobic instructor that was to be willing to go out that far on the limb. So let's put that out there. That's going to be kind of a unique person, but I just wanted to volunteer that. She said there's some people that are having great success with that.
Would you, Rob, perhaps, Sarah, would you invite her to join us next week, and so perhaps she could, talk to us about, maybe, even a student of hers or something.
I'll see what I can do.
That'll be great. That'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So copy that. In fact, I was actually asking if she could join us, and in fact, if there are more people, like if all of us, if we can find more people who have been doing something or the other, like what Rob is talking about, this lady, I think this is what every educator is trying to achieve. This is the utopian pursuit to find something together and have your own set of things put up together, which actually gives you the most favorable outcome. And that actually validates what we're trying to do here. Nobody is as smart and as passionate as people that you just mentioned. So if we can have something, have that deconstructed for every educator, so you don't have to do that hard work. So something that already is there. But we would love to talk to her, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from what she has been.
Eventually, Saurabh, what we'll be looking at, and I think Professor Schahram agree, and Professor Antonio and and our colleagues who join us, that we will be looking at some kind of framework, or perhaps an architecture, system architecture, that, because you have, say, technical experts, and, every engineer, scientist, computer, whatever expert will want to see kind of framework, something that, they can say, okay, technically this looks like a viable solution. And of course, apart from that, side by side is that business model. That's a kind of something which is cost analysis, et cetera. But, be able to kind of put some technicalities, so then people, can bring their expertise, and they say, well, did you think about that? Kind of eventually we can, because that would be kind of like, look at the infrastructure, what potentially infrastructure we're having in mind. Any comments, please?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that one thing that is so difficult here, I also mentioned that in the beginning, basically the guideline, a discussion and a decision-making process of what things we do not do. Because, this whole education ecosystem is so big that we will definitely get carried away, especially because we are the users of this system. So naturally, we all want all features all the time for everybody. And this is basically kind of a little bit dangerous. So we need a lot of discipline, and also from you, from the kind of business side of it, to actually keep the balance, the right delicate balance here, so that we create something which is really much more of an ecosystem that can grow with the help of many people. But as was just said now, kind of having kind of an architectural approach, when we can look at the ecosystem, and also based on your experience with the number of universities now you mentioned from India, which I think is a tremendous success. And I think we should never forget this, right? I mean, if you have 46 universities from India, this says a lot, right? So we should probably highlight this a little bit more and look into what is it? Maybe it's the first, I mean, typically in tech business, it's better to first own a market and then go to the other markets, right? Rather than try to go global right in the beginning. So I would love to hear a lot of arguments why it does make sense to focus on India first. That market is pretty big, right? I'm sure you would be very happy to have that market. And then we can talk about the national cultures and how they differ and all of that, because somebody here also mentioned the different national cultures, which I totally agree. More than 20 years ago, I wrote a paper about national cultures and video conferences, actually. That's also a very interesting aspect. So, there is a lot of interesting things that we can discuss here, but it's really challenging because it's so big. So we need to be very disciplined not to, waste too much time. I don't know the solution to this, but probably we need to first focus on a couple of bigger decisions before we move along.
Sure.
Agree.
We will definitely do that. So we'll structure it in a way like Professor Babulak also said. So we are going to be coming up with the whole architecture of what we are trying to build, features and
Right.
the problems that we're solving, trying to solve through this, and what exactly an educator would not need, like which platforms would not be needed once they start using the platform. So basically functionality wise, and then of course feature wise, and then the internal architecture. So we will start documenting that stuff, and these are the things that we're going to start sharing with the focus group with more feedback. So how we're going to take this further is we're going to be sharing some documents with everyone, like a Google sheet or let's say an open sheet for Google. What do you have, the docs? So what we'll do is we'll share that with everyone, and we'll brainstorm online and collaborate on those, so we can have more ideas.
And also, if I may,
please, sir.
Yeah, if I may, I just come across a couple of kind of news, I say it in Europe and all over. There's a lot of new kind of comers that they kind of offer very specific courses, like the very kind of interesting AI, R, Python and all these, data mining machine. So this is somehow, also kind of interesting to figure out that we can eventually draft potential curriculum and see what, and of course, then match it up to potential faculty or online teachers, etc. And, apart from all the other things we mentioned, technical business model and also educational kind of curriculum model. Just, this might be, of course, moving stage, but I may be up, parallel to do a little bit of research and see and learn from, say, new small comers that are maybe focused, like, they look at very much smaller geography, but they could be very successful because they offer something for professionals who not necessarily looking for a complete degree, but they're looking for specific skill or specific knowledge. And this is yet kind of addition to that curriculum dimension.
Sure. I think so. So I think we have discussed most of the things that we wanted to, and there's a lot of insight that we already got from all the participants. So we had more participants, but we couldn't include them because we wanted to keep the group smaller. So we started with just 10, and we have another meeting with another group day after tomorrow, another 10 people. And then after that meeting, we'll send invitation emails to be part of the core committee group. So we'll be very happy if you would oblige. And we'll also say very clearly what are the key functions of the core committee, or what do we expect from you, the support that we expect from you as part of the group. Also, post this, so the next meeting, so I'm just setting up the agenda for the next meeting. In the next meeting, we will showcase you the virtual examination center, wherein we'll talk about written examinations, essay-based examinations, and we will give you a live demo of what we have built, including proctoring, AI, and everything that we have built around it, and something that is being used already by most of the universities. So, and of course, there are a lot of areas where we can improve, but then we have already done close to about 2 million exams on that platform in the last 8 months. So I think there's already a lot of improvement done, but I'm sure with your feedback, we can improve that further. So that'll take about 45 minutes in the next meeting. Then we'll be open to another 45 minutes on the feedback for every feature that you like and that you don't. So we'll create a list and we can do a live polling, as we demonstrate. So that's the agenda for the next meeting, which is 17th. Post that, when we meet again, end of Feb, we would not be using Zoom. We'll use our own product, which is the live classroom, wherein we'll demo the product itself through our own software and solution that we will build. So it's already there, but of course, we're testing it thoroughly. It may take another 20 days before we actually roll it out. So, and then of course, in that product itself, you'll see some cool features, how we can make classes, online classes more engaging and fun. Some sort of gamification we've introduced using trivia and a lot of features, cool features. We'll talk about it. So these are a few things. And then post that, we'll talk about the LMS. So which means by mid of March, we would have showcased everything. But of course, it's not just that we're going to be meeting. Most of the conversations are also going to happen over emails and focus chat groups, and maybe you can create a Slack group if everybody is fine with it, or other collaborative tools. So that's what's going to be on the cards for this month. And I'm very open if you're willing to introduce somebody who's really been into online and education and EdTech. Would be very happy to include them. Please feel free to invite them. You all are key stakeholders now with WAC. So please feel free to invite anybody who you think can really contribute positively. So we'll be very happy to do that. So Professor Babulak, you would like to conclude?
Well, I just want to say great thank you to every one of you. And I mean, all the comments and contributions you presented, they are very, very valuable. I also like to congratulate Saurabh and your team, because, it seems like, you really are kind of pushing the edge, and, it's challenging, but I often say, the whole life, if it's not challenging, it's not interesting. So challenge is good. And so everybody, please do take care, stay healthy, and let us also hope that, the other group of experts will figure out how to heal and prevent that COVID, and eventually, everything kind of get much better. So I remain most grateful and look forward to our next meeting. And yet again, Saurabh, congratulations, well done. And stay healthy and strong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.